Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the podcast. This is Big Reptile Talk, the podcast where we bring just amazing reptile content creators and not just reptile content creators. I don't care what kind of animals you keep, whether it's giraffes, ants, spiders, snakes, fish. I don't care what animals you keep. If you are an animal lover, I want to talk to you. I want to know what you got going on. I want to know your future plans. So there's a good chance I'm going to reach out to you, bring you on my podcast, and we're going to chat. But before we get started, let's give a shout out to the sponsors. Shout out to Mile High Mutations, man, just producing amazing snakes. Y'all make sure y'all hit up his Morph Market. Tell him Derek sent you. Shout out to my brother Eugene over at Morphed Ambitions, man. He's producing amazing snakes. And not just that, he has high quality mulch. I appreciate you for showing love, man. Shout out to Paul over at Large March Morse, man. I appreciate you for showing love to the channel, man. I couldn't do it without you. Mike out in Canada, MKL Exotics, just amazing hog-nosed snakes. Y'all make sure y'all check them out. Now, this brother right here is in the chat. He is all the way from Australia. Fries Critters, big supporter of the channel. I appreciate you. Make sure y'all go check out Mad River, man. Now, this guy's producing amazing serpents. He produces rats, just everything, man. Make sure you give him some love. Shout out to my brother Moreno over at You Already Know Morse, man. Just producing amazing snakes. Y'all go check out his Instagram. Check out his Morph Market. Matt Yates, man, I love you, man. Thank you so much for showing love, man. Y'all go hit up his Instagram, hit up his Morph Market, see what that guy's producing. Ball of Hands Pythons, man, definitely need some love, man. Go check out his Morph Market, producing amazing snakes. Now, I want to stop here. King's Reptiles, man, just a awesome husband and wife duo producing amazing ball pythons and boas, man. Now, y'all go check them out and tell them I sent you. Just a real humble, down-to-earth couple, man. I love them, man. They support me, so I appreciate them. Low Life Exotics, man. That's my brother. I love you, man. Thank you for showing love to the channel. Basement Pythons, man. When I tell you this is a good guy right here, he's producing snakes, and not just that, he's in the Army, so he's just busy all the time. Y'all go check him out, man. And not just that, shout out to Heathen Hatchery, man. I love you. And Stone Age Ball Pythons, man. Now, when I tell you this guy's killing it on Instagram, over 400,000 people follow his Instagram. He does amazing reaction reels, so y'all go check him out. And last but not least, my brother Ozzy Boys is a sponsor of the podcast. Just I love you, Ozzy. You don't even need an introduction. You're a king of ball pythons. Thank you so much for showing love to the channel. Now, this is going to be an amazing show. I'm super excited. This guy, Mr. Richard, is a titan in the spider industry. Tarantulas they just fascinate me. I was going to get one, and we're going to talk about that. So don't go nowhere. When we come back, we are going to have the Tarantula Collective in the building, man.
Whoa. Big reptile talk. Yeah, we working. Talk about service. Big reptile talk. When it comes to talking about snakes, yeah. Love that we got for them effect, yeah. Big reptile talk. Let's talk about reptiles. Yeah, big reptile talk. Let's talk about reptiles.
Yo, Mr. Richard, the Tarantula Collective. I'm excited to have you here, man. How you doing today?
I'm muted. That's how I'm doing. What's up, man? It's good to see you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm a big fan, but before we start the podcast, I got to put you in the hot seat.
Okay. I feel like I'm in the hot seat already. I'm sweating like crazy in here.
Now, you are an amazing tarantula content creator.
Thank you.
So is Tarantula Cat, and y'all are friends because I've been following y'all for a while. Y'all know each other. So my question to you is, being friends with Tarantula Cat, what is the best tarantula-related gift she's got you?
All right, we got to start off with a correction. I don't know who told you that I'm friends with Tarantula Cat, but that is.
Oh, you don't know her?
Oh yeah, I know her, but we're not friends.
Man, we are all friends. Content creators, we are connected through content.
She's like my little sister. That's the relationship we have. We bicker and we fight. I mean, we love each other, but yeah, I'm just kidding. She's a friend. I love her. She's awesome.
Okay, so now you got to answer the question. What's the best tarantula related gift she's ever got you for like a Christmas or something?
I have sent her some gifts over the years, mainly like video equipment. Like I sent her a light, I think, to use just because I was watching her videos, like you need a freaking light. So I sent her a light. I don't think she's ever given me a gift. Yeah,
Oh
I
man,
really
I
got
gotta
to
go.
rack my brain here. She probably
Uh,
has, and is going to be upset that I didn't mention it. Um, she may have sent me one of her squishmallows or those little plushy animals that she makes, like limited edition runs. I don't remember if I bought that or if she sent it to me.
we're gonna find out. Well, anyways,
Yeah.
man, we're gonna find out. But shout out to Tarantula Cat, man, another titan in the industry, man. Now I want to learn a little more about you, man. So take us like on a time trip. Let's time travel. What were you doing before you got involved with spiders?
Uh, that's not a that's not a question I want to answer. Like, what was I doing for a job?
Anything. Well, before you said, you know what, I love tarantulas. I love spiders. This is what I want to
Yeah.
do with my life. What were you doing?
Well, yeah, I mean, it started out in college. I was a freshman and was scared of spiders, but I was like, one of those like punk rock guys with the tight, dressed like Joey Ramone or something, tight blue jeans and black t-shirts that were tight. And, I was all punk rock and, I would run into a spider web or I'd see a spider and would completely drop that hard person persona and, would be like, ah. And so I wanted to get over that fear because it was not playing well with the ladies. I had a professor that was like, it's you're afraid of the unknown. Like you just don't know anything about spiders and they are different than other animals. And that's what it's your fear of the unknown. It's not an actual fear of spiders. So he challenged me to get a pet tarantula. Or just even I mean, I don't think he suggested a tarantula. He was like, just catch a spider, keep it as a pet. And I went to the pet store, got a tarantula, and was just started. I mean, this was like back before. Well, I mean, there was the internet, but there wasn't like Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that. This is back in like 2000. So I just started going on message boards, looking at websites, checking books out of the library, and learning as much as I could about them. And then was keeping one in my dorm room and just became fascinated. I went from a guy that was scared of spiders to a guy that would let his tarantula crawl around on him while he was studying for a test or something. Kind of freaking out people in my dorm. So that's kind of started the fascination. I just had a pet tarantula from throughout my 20s, but never really thought about doing YouTube videos or being a content creator or anything like that. It was more, it was just a pet, just something fun to have, and I liked it because I moved around a lot, so like it was very easy to just grab its aquarium and put it in the front seat of the car and buckle it in and move to a different state, and I didn't really have to do much for that. It was a good hobo pet, I guess you could say. And
So I want to interrupt you since we're talking about your first spider. What was your first spider like? When it comes to snakes, you have the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced. Did you start off right at the tarantula, or did you just I'm gonna get a daddy long leg first? What was your beginner, the beginner spider for you that started
yeah.
it for you?
Well, back then you didn't have much of a choice. It was whatever they had at the pet store. Most of them were wild caught. They just kind of pull them out of South America or Mexico, and we're selling adults like $20. And what was it? A Grammastola porteri, or a rose hair tarantula, which is back in like the 90s, early 2000s. That was pretty much your standard tarantula that you could find at a pet store. It was New World, not, it wasn't very fast. It wasn't very venomous. It wasn't very defensive. It was a very good first tarantula. And at the time, you could get adult female for like 20, $25. Like I don't think I paid more than $25 for that spider. Now you are having a female because they changed some of the import and export laws. It's hundreds of dollars for that tarantula now. Spiderling is
Right.
more than what I paid for an adult female. So it's changed a lot, but that was a pretty common tarantula back then, just the rose hair tarantula. So that was my first one.
Right. He started right at the tarantula. I love it. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Tammy says, I just want to show this comment to you. She said, I follow Richard. His videos are awesome. I really enjoy them.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, let's say I'm getting into the spider. I want to get my first spider. What would you recommend? What do you think is the best? And I know this is cliche, and we're getting to some better questions. But what do you think is the best beginner spider? Like if I said, "Hey, I'm going out to get a black widow," would you say, "No, no, 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 don't start there. Start here."
Well, I get asked that question a whole lot, and it used to be a very generic answer. I would just tell people, get the tamest, cheapest, most readily available spider, which would be something like a fauna pelmicalcodes, or like I'm sorry, a desert blonde tarantula, or a Mexican red knee tarantula, which is like the Brachypelma humori. But longer I've been doing this, and not so much doing this, like it's not really had. This isn't something that came from keeping spiders, but interacting with people, at expos, doing podcasts like this, or just talking to people in comments, or responding to emails and stuff. And I've kind of changed my stance a little bit on that. And I think the best beginner's tarantula is whichever one you find the most fascinating and really inspires you. Because I just started talking to a lot of people that they really wanted a blue spider. Like that's what they were passionate about. That's what they were excited about. But most of the blue spiders are considered intermediate or expert level. So then they would get some like random, something that's considered a beginner tarantula. That's just like a boring brown tarantula. And boring's not the right word. They just don't do a lot. They don't web up a whole lot. They don't climb around a whole lot. They're just a new world terrestrial species that's very docile and just doesn't do much. And it wasn't hitting that thing for them. So they kind of like, lost their passion and their excitement, and then just kind of drop out of the hobby.
I agree.
So, when it comes to tarantulas, it's there's no tarantula that's gonna kill you. There's no, there's a few species that are very fast and their venom might be pretty painful. But usually that's a handful of species that most people realize that's more of kind of an expert level, I guess, or an advanced level spider. So I'll work up to that, but for the most part, pretty much any tarantula out there, if that's what you're about, if that's what excites you, then that's the spider that you should get. You should get something that you're going to enjoy looking at every day. You're going to enjoy interacting with. You're going to be proud of and show off to people. So I mean, the two spiders I already mentioned, the Grammostola pulchra. That's not what I said. The Grammostola porteri or the Fauna pelmicalcodes. Those are both really good species. My personal favorite is the green bottle blue tarantula, which is the Chromatopelma cyanopubescens, just because for me, that's what I like suggesting to people. It's not a good spider to handle. They're very feisty. They'll bolt. They are really prone to kick those urticating hairs, which can be really itchy, but they're beautiful. I mean, they've got bright greens, bright blues, bright red. They web up a whole lot. They're kind of semi-arboreal, so they're out in the open a whole lot. I mean, they just really make the enclosure look awesome, with all the spider webs and stuff. So that's my favorite, and that's what I suggest to people. But if you're wanting something you can take out of the enclosure and handle, then maybe go for like a Brazilian black tarantula, or like a Texas brown tarantula or something like that.
I love that answer, man. I love that answer. Y'all hear we get knowledge first now. Now, I want you to, when it comes to tarantulas, give me like, what do you think is like the biggest misconception? And while you're thinking about that, I'll tell you, like for me, when it came to snakes, I used to think that if you got bit by a snake, you were dead. If it's venomous, it's going to kill you. And that's like one of the biggest misconceptions. Venom, has this certain toxicity. When it comes to the cobra versus the copperhead, the toxicity is just so different. So that was like a misconception for me when it came to snakes. So when it comes to spiders or tarantulas, what do you think is like one of the biggest misconceptions out there that you can be like, you know what, that's not true?
There's a whole bunch. I mean, I think I did a whole video busting like the top 10 myths about tarantulas. Because there's so many out there. I mean, similar to what you just said, like a lot of people think, well, one, they're like tarantulas are poisonous, and it's like, no, they're venomous. And then you explain the difference between what's poisonous and what's venomous. People will think that they're going to send you to the hospital, like you have to have anti-venom on hand, and kind of like they're a gaboon, or some kind of like viper of some sort that's one of those hot snakes. They're nothing like that at all. I mean, for the most part, most tarantulas venom is, and it's not the best example, but it's something that works for people, and it's something they can relate to. It's usually that's not their venom is no stronger, and usually less strong than a bee or a wasp. It's like their venoms, it can incapacitate a cricket or a
For
roach,
for
but
a
it's not gonna.
tarantula, it's like a bee sting.
For the most of them, yeah. I mean, there's
What?
some species like Poecilotheria, some of your old world tarantulas. their bite's going to have a lot more. I mean, it's going to give you, pain, obviously, swelling, numbness. I mean, it could give you muscle, your muscles will start twitching. It could. I mean, there's a few species, Heteroscoda maculata, a toga starburst baboon, like some of those old world species. You may have to go to the hospital. Especially if you're like you don't handle pain well. But, those are more like the fast advanced species that most people don't keep until they've, become accustomed to it. But, your New World tarantulas, for the most part, they could bite you, and the fangs are gonna hurt more than their venom.
Right.
It may be a couple hours of itching, slight pain and swelling, but, it's not gonna kill you.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. I think the last reported death of it, like an actual reported death directly related to a tarantula, at least in the research that I was doing, was back in like the 1800s when they were moving out west and some guy got bit by a tarantula and then like a couple of weeks later died. But it turns out it wasn't even the tarantula that killed him. He just didn't clean the wound and wasn't keeping it clean. And so it was the infection that ended up killing him. So,
Right.
the smaller spiders are the ones that they're more advanced. They've evolved because tarantulas are like dinosaurs. You know what I mean? Like they're like the least evolved spiders out there. So, it's things like the black widow, the Brazilian wandering spiders, some huntsmen, they've got a more advanced venom that can target different cells in your body and shut stuff down or break things apart. And, but even then, like, I don't think there's been an actual death from a black widow bite since the 80s, early 80s, like 82 probably. If you get bit by a black widow, medicine's advanced to where they know how to treat it quickly. I think the stat that I read was like 70-80% of all black widow bites, they don't actually envenomate you. Like they just bite you. They don't put any venom in there. So it's one of those things that the media and just elaborate stories have really kind of made them out to be a lot more dangerous than they really are.
Would you ever free handle a black widow?
I have.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah. I mean, even before I was really into spiders, like I just lived in Florida and sometimes there would be one in my car and I felt like, I didn't want to kill it. I like spiders, but
Right.
I've got 3 of them on my shelf right over there. I just moved them from one enclosure to another recently. So it's yeah. They're pretty. I don't want to say they're like timid or anything, but they're kind of docile, and they're not going to bite you unless you are really irritating them.
Right. I love that. I love that. Now, approximately, and you don't have to hit it right on the head, but currently, right now, in your spider room, how many spiders are you working with right now? And are you doing any breeding?
Right now, I have 187 tarantulas. That
Man.
I only know that because I've got an app that keeps track of all that, and it's like a TV in the lobby that shows me how many tarantulas I have. So right now that number is 187. But then I have 12 true spiders. I got some black widows. I got some huntsmen. I got some wandering spiders. I got some house spiders, wolf spiders.
Man, are you doing any? Are you breeding them?
I did. I just had an egg sac from my fauna pelmet calcotes, the desert blonde tarantula. She dropped that about 2.5 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. But I caught her yesterday. She was starting to eat it. So I was like, oh, that's not good. So I tried, because you usually got to leave it with them for about 30 days. So I pulled the egg sac, opened it up to see if anybody was still alive. And turns out like it was just a bad egg sac. Nobody had started to hatch. So that's why she was eating it. She's like, well, this didn't work. So she's going to eat it, ingest all those nutrients and then probably drop another sac. So
Right.
I went and gave that back to her, let her eat her young. And well, hopefully she'll drop another sac here shortly. I've also just bred 5 different females I have that are Monocentrophus balfouri, which is the Socotra Island blue baboon tarantula. They're one of the few communal species of tarantula, which is really cool because you can have 100 of them in one enclosure as long as it's big enough. And then I've bred Dolichothele diamantinensis, which is the Brazilian blue dwarf tarantula, it looks very much like the green bottle blue, but it's a dwarf species, so it's smaller. But it's one of my favorite species.
I love it, man. I'm such a fan, man. I love it. I love it, man. Now, and since we're talking about breeding, I got a 2-part question for you. Like when it comes to tarantulas and spiders, a lot of times when they breed, the female will kill the male if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's
Sometimes.
like, can you like put them in there and let them do their thing, or do you actually have to stay there and watch them and make sure that the female doesn't hurt the male?
It kind of depends. For the most part, most of the time when I'm breeding, and I don't do a lot of breeding. I wasn't against breeding. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't the part of the hobby I really enjoyed. But since I got moved into the studio, I've got more space. I've got I've got a guy that comes in and helps me out sometimes. And then just all the stuff that's going on with Lacey Act and the Endangered Species Act and all that stuff that's happening. It was kind of, I was telling people to buy captive bred and support your local bug dealers. And then and making these statements that the majority of the issue we're having in the tarantula hobby is that we're importing all these species from Europe, and when the more they shut that down, the less species we're going to have. And it's like, if I'm going to be encouraging people to be breeding in the States, I should probably practice what I preach. So that's
Right.
why I started breeding myself here recently. But yeah, so I completely forgot your question.
No. So I was talking about, like, when it comes to spiders breeding, I was always
Oh yeah.
under the impression, like, when the female, when she mates, she's gonna hurt the male. So is it like, are you able to leave them in there, or do you got to stay there and actually watch them do what they're gonna do, so
Yeah.
and make sure that the female don't hurt the male?
Yeah, most of the time you got to sit there and babysit them. You got some tongs, you kind of just hover it right above them. You'll see, and the way they mate is really strange. If you've never seen that, definitely check out a video. Because the male will kind of use his front pedipalps that have these like little hooks on them and kind of hook her front legs and hold her up, and then take his other legs and start going, like he's like removing his sperm from his like little sperm sac, and then inserting it into her. So it's a weird way that they couple. It's not, like how you would think of a mammal having sex or something.
I'm going to watch the video right now as soon as we get done.
But it's like, then it's, but he's like holding her fangs, like keeping her from biting him while he's doing that. And then when he's done, he just backs away really fast. Sometimes she'll also back away at the same time and they'll go their separate ways. Other times she kind of has that like feeding response and she'll try to eat him. So you'll stick your tongs in between him and try to get them separated. Even the most experienced person, sometimes the spiders are a lot faster than humans. So sometimes she gets them and there's not much you can do. And then there's also what they call shark tanking, which is, you just take the male and you throw it in the female's enclosure and leave him there overnight. And then come back the next day, and if you hope that they paired, and if he survived, then you pull him out. If not, it's one of those things. I actually made a video on this on tarantula cannibalism, and discussed why females eat them and why it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it sucks that your male got eaten, especially if you have like an emotional attachment to this guy. You've raised him for the past 5 or 10 years of his life from a spiderling. But when a male hits that pintle or the ultimate molt, when they're sexually mature and ready to mate, that's the end of their life. Like, they're not going to molt again. They're just going to start withering away and then die of old age, essentially. So, whether he gets eaten or whether he dies 2 months later, just because he's, of old age, he's going to die. So if the female eats him, all of the nutrients that she needs to produce more spiders and to keep herself healthy are what makes up a tarantula, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when she eats that male, she's getting a full spectrum of all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that she needs. So it's like a really good, fulfilling, healthy meal for her right before she stops eating while she's, gestating or whatever. And dropping
Right.
eggs back.
So that's almost a good thing.
Yeah, it's like, you don't want it to happen because you can breed a male with multiple females. So if like you're a professional dealer or breeder, you want to save the male so you can, the more you breed, the better, chances of success you're going to have. But in nature, that's or even when in captivity, when they get eaten, it's almost guaranteed if that she eats the male, it's going to have a viable egg sac.
Right. I love it. I love it, man. Now let's say, just for shits and giggles. I know you're not into the business of selling stuff, but let's say you're breeding your tarantulas and you wanted to sell a celebrity a tarantula. Who would it be? What celebrity? If you could sell any celebrity in the world a tarantula, who would it be?
Nicolas Cage.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I only say that because I know he keeps reptiles. And he's talked about centipedes and stuff like that before. He just kind of seems like somebody that would be really into keeping a pet tarantula. He may even have one. I don't know. And I know I've had Deborah Wilson. I don't know if you know her.
I do, from Mad TV.
Yeah, she was on my podcast. She keeps tarantulas and spiders and stuff and scorpions.
Oh, that's so freaking awesome, man.
So I'd like to sell one to her, but I'd probably just have to give it to her.
Right. I love it. Now, I want you to, talk about, like, what's going through your mind when you pick a tarantula up or it's going up your arm? Do you have like any kind of nervousness? Do you like kind of clear your thoughts? Do you like, okay, if I have to be still. If I'm nervous, the spider's gonna sense it. What are you like thinking when that spider's crawling up your arm?
At this point in my life, I'm worried about the spider more than anything because if it starts crawling up my body, then I don't have control of it. And especially most of the spiders that I handle or I take out for other people to handle, they're terrestrial spiders. So in nature, they're not climbing up very high. They're staying on the ground like 98% of their life. So if the spider's crawling up and gets on my shoulder, and the worst, and this just happened yesterday, I was showing somebody a curly hair tarantula. Somebody had never really held a tarantula before. It was actually like my wife's cousin, so I don't know what that means. Cousin-in-law? I don't know what that's a thing. Good guy, but he was kinda like, "I don't know about this," and I was like, "Well, this is a really friendly one," so I brought her out, and he was handling her and gave it back, and she just ran up my arm, and I was talking and not totally paying attention to what I was doing. She got past me and was on my back, and, I wasn't scared she was gonna hurt me. I wasn't scared of anything other than if she jumps from this height and hits the ground, there's a possibility her abdomen is gonna rupture and she'll die. So that when anytime I'm handling a tarantula, that's what I'm nervous about is actually hurting the spider.
Mm, that makes sense. We got a audience question. Shout out to Anton. He said, Richard, did you enjoy your IRN brew?
Iron brew. Yes, I did. A funny story. I actually I bought a can of it before I hopped on the plane back to the States. And I was gonna my plan was to drink it in the Uber on the way there. And I took it out of the bag and the Uber driver was like, please no food or drinks in my car. And I was like, I respect that. I put it back in my bag, zipped it up, and then just forgot. So I went through security and they're like, you gotta claim any liquids that you have and you gotta get rid of this and that. So I threw all that stuff away. They got in line for security and was going through, and they pulled my bags and had me go, back into customs and wanted to search everything. I'm like, what did I do? Like, I'm not on a terrorist watch list. He's going through my bag and pulls out this black garbage bag and opens it up, and it's a can of Iron Brew. And I was like, oh man, I almost missed my flight because I forgot I threw that can back in my backpack.
I
But he
did.
took it. He wouldn't even let me drink it. I'm like, oh, come on, let me just drink it real fast right here. He's like, no, I've got to test it, make sure it's not drugs or a bomb or something. I'm like, oh, jeez.
I did see that you were in London, man. Awesome,
Yeah.
man. Now, be honest. You had that big studio. Give us an idea. How much of your time is spent chasing escapees?
I have not had any escapees since I've been in the studio.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
none. Well, I did have a roach, a dubia roach. I didn't close the container, and I, like, walked out into the lobby, and I saw this, like, big roach walking across the floor. I was like, "Uh-oh." But that's a feeder. It's not an actual spider. But
Right.
when it comes to most of the time, I mean, tarantulas do get out, but if you're conscious about what it is you're doing and just make sure that you close all the lids when you're done, they're not gonna escape. I had one tarantula escape the entire time I had my basement filled with spiders, and that was because I forgot it was one of those exoterra enclosures with the double doors, and you gotta have that little thing that you turn to, like, lock them into place. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay, so I didn't turn it. I just shut the doors and then walked away, and she walked over, I guess, during the night and pushed him open and crawled out. But I found her, like, the next day, so it wasn't and, it wasn't a dangerous spider or anything, so
That's freaking awesome, man. I love
yeah.
it. Now, since we're talking about dubia roaches, I got a question. In the reptile world, if you were to feed a live rat or live mice to a snake, and you put it on video, the reptile community is coming at you with pitchforks because they don't like that. They prefer frozen thawed. So my
Sure.
question to you is, when it comes to like the tarantula world, or do people get like pissed or mad when you see like live crickets or live like dubia roaches, or they're pretty much just like, you know what, that's what they're born for. They're feeders. That's what they are.
Yeah, when it comes to tarantulas, especially adults, not so much with spiderlings. Usually, you can give them pre-killed prey, but even then, it's a live roach or a live cricket, and then you smash its head and kill it instantly, and then drop it in the enclosure for the spider to eat. And you mainly do that for safety purposes because crickets they got some jaws on them,
Yeah,
and if it's a small vulnerable sling and the cricket's a little too big, the cricket might win that battle. Or at the very least, it could just hurt your spiderling, and that's a very vulnerable time of their life. And sometimes just the smallest amount of damage can, just not go well for that spider. So yeah, when you're talking about adults to trigger that feeding response, because tarantulas don't see very well. They don't really have a nose. They have like chemo, kind of like what do they call that? Chemotactile senses. Well, on the setae, that like the hairs that are on their body, they can that's kind of how they smell. They can differentiate between like the chemical particles in the air, but really their main vision or their main sense for capturing prey is vibration. So it's got to be alive, it's got to be moving, or they're not going to register it as prey, something to be eaten.
So you almost have to do live feeders unless it's like when it's like a smaller spider, then you can do pre-kill.
Yeah, and
Okay.
when it comes to like mice and stuff, they people in the tarantula hobby do get upset if you throw a live mouse in there, but that's mainly because most of the tarantulas, that's a pretty even fight, a mouse and a spider, even if it's half the size of the spider, a lot of the spider's mass or the footprint they make is their legs, which really isn't that big, or isn't something all that formidable. They're fragile. They're like an egg. You know what I mean? Like they got that really hard exoskeleton, but inside they're just a gooey mess. So you crack that, it starts. I can't take a spider to the vet. They're not going to be able to do anything.
Right.
You can try and super glue it shut, but usually if you break that exoskeleton, it's bad news. So, people are more against feeding live, not because they're, you know, worried. They think it's inhumane to the mouse. They're like, that's inhumane to the spider.
Right.
And I have fed my spiders some live prey before, like vertebrate prey, mainly some stuff like anoles, like feeder lizards and things like that. But I stopped doing that not because I felt like something is ethically wrong with it. I just didn't like the mess, like the way spiders digest. They don't eat it like a mouse would or like a snake would and digest it and then poop. They digest it on the outside, like they hold it and are like excreting those digestive juices onto the prey and sucking up all the nutrients. And then with a cricket, what they leave is essentially the exoskeleton, whatever is not really digestible. With a lizard or a mouse, they're leaving like guts and
Ooh.
bones, and like it's just like this gnarly mess of just nastiness that really starts reeking of death almost immediately. And it's like I don't like cleaning that up. So
Right.
and it's of no real benefit to the spider. So why am I even doing this?
Right. I used to do live feeders. But I stopped doing them. I'm frozen thawed now.
Yeah, when it comes to reptiles, it's all frozen thawed.
You better know it. Shout out to Elizabeth Crafton. She says she is from Northern Ireland, but she's living in Vegas. She wonders if you tried a Lucozade.
No, I did not try that. I had some Fanta while I was out there. That was pretty crazy. Because you're used to Fanta. It's like neon orange on the label, and then the actual soda's neon orange. They gave me one. I was like, "This Fanta's bad." He's like, "No, it's good." Because it looked like orange juice. It was like, this is orange juice in a Fanta bottle. They essentially just carbonated, but it was good. I liked it a lot.
Right. I love that. I love that. Now, I gotta ask this, man, because you're in the spider hobby, man. How many times have you actually be honest? How many times have you actually rewatched SpiderMan?
The movie?
Yeah.
Jeez, not often. I think I see them when they come out, but I'm not like a huge Spider-Man fan.
Okay. I like that.
Sorry.
I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I don't know, but we'll see. Now I want to give you a hot seat question.
Okay.
And this might be a little personal. I apologize, but I don't know. Do you have a wife or a girlfriend?
I have a wife.
I have a wife too. Awesome. Could imagine if they treated us like male spiders, right? Trying to eat us. Now, I got a question.
Uh-huh.
You have a lot of amazing animals, but let's say you wanted one you didn't have it in your collection. Hot seat question: have you ever fibbed to your wife? Have you ever said, "Honey, I really want this tarantula. It's $800," and she ended up finding out it was $1,200?
That's never happened, mainly because spiders aren't that expensive. You're talking snake prices there, buddy. The most expensive spider you're gonna find is maybe $400 or $500, but $600 probably. There's some rare species out there, but with her, it's not so much of a money thing. It was a number issue. Like we got married. I had a spider, and then I think it was just because I was so transient, I was like, I'd sign a lease somewhere, I'd be there for a year, lease was up, I'd bounce, then I'd go to a different state or a different town or a different part of town. I never really stayed in apartments for very long. And when we like had a house, it was like roots are have been implanted here. I'm not. I got a mortgage now. I'm not going anywhere. I've got this big basement that is mainly like my kid had like Lego sets and Nerf guns and stuff like that. But it's like you're playing video games most of the time, so you're taking up this one little corner, and you've got this entire basement. So I made a shelf and had the one spider, and then that turned into like 4 or 5 spiders, and then it got up to 12 spiders. And she was like, "Honey, that's enough spiders. That's a crazy amount of spiders. You tell people you have 12 pet spiders, they're gonna think you're insane." I was like, "All right, I'll stop buying spiders." No, wait, that's not what I said. I said I'll stop bringing spiders home. I was very clear that that was the line. So I wasn't technically lying to her. I kept buying spiders. I just kept them at work on my desk because they were little spiderlings. So, the enclosure was no bigger than this can for the most part. So I had like 20 tarantulas at work. It was like I worked for my buddy, so he thought they were cool. So, the shop was slowly filling up with spiders. And, then I would start sneaking them home because I would like, "This one's really fascinating. I wanna watch it." So I actually had a bookshelf. It was actually like an entertainment stand. It had like these doors that like would shut, with magnets. And I think I had a TV or something on top of it, but the inside was just all spiderling enclosures. It was like a whole nursery. And one day I was out with my friends. I didn't come home when I normally do. I had a light on in there. It was on a timer. And my wife, who never really goes down to the basement, went down there to go talk to our son and noticed there was a red light emanating from this cabinet and walked over and opened it up and totally busted me. She was like, "Well, this is like 3 times the amount of spiders. We agreed you were not gonna, go over this amount." I'm like, "Yeah, So but then she could have fought me on that, but she was just like, "Oh, just don't do this again." And then, like, I started doing YouTube videos, and it was kinda like, "Honey, I need more spiders. I need content. This business is sending them to me in exchange for advertising." And yeah, so but that's part of the reason I ended up getting the studio because I was getting so many spiders, and that's a an issue I think a lot of people new to the tarantula hobby kinda fall into, is that you're buying these spiderlings. And I mean, I've got one right over here. Hold on.
Oh yeah, we want to see it. Oh yeah, this is awesome.
So this is an enclosure.
I'm gonna put you on solo. We can still hear you.
Okay. So yeah, so if you look at this is a can of soda. This is the enclosure for a spiderling. When
That
you
is
first get there.
awesome.
That's small, but by the time this guy's full grown, it's gonna need a 10-gallon aquarium or maybe a 5-gallon aquarium. But, so you get a shelf with like 20 or 30 of these on there, and it fits your shelf nicely, and you're like, "Yeah, I got this completely under control." And then fast forward 5 or 6 years, and then you need a whole rack of shelves, to keep all of the spiders because they keep growing. So that was kinda what was happening. It just everybody kept getting in larger enclosures, and I started focusing more on like, not just a bare bones type of, sterilite tub with cork bar. Like, I wanna give them more space and more, just kind of enriching environment, something that's a little more natural, and that requires a larger enclosure. And it was just like, I don't have enough room in the basement anymore.
I'm the same way. It no longer, I think I have just the right amount of animals. And it's no longer about for me getting more animals. It's about improving each enclosure and just giving them the best life. So I definitely agree with you, man. Now I want to ask, if let's say every single tarantula spider keeper in the world was watching this podcast right now, what's one thing you would tell every tarantula keeper out there?
Every tarantula keeper, buy captive bred. Stop buying wild caught tarantulas. We don't need them. We don't need to support the black trade, what do they call that? The black market.
Yeah.
But it's not. They call something different for the pet trade. Illegal. I should be reading the USARC website more often. But like the illegal pet trade,
Right.
whatever that's called for the tarantula, because it's essentially, these people are going out into the jungle or the desert, and they're just grabbing up, females and males, and they don't really, if you pull a female out of the wild, especially if she's gravid, like a fauna with cowcodes, they live 30 years. So that she's not going to start putting out babies until like 10, 20, 10, 15 years. probably about 10 years or so. So you pull that out, that's hundreds of spiders that are no longer going to be in the wild,
Right.
and it's like, so you take one spider out and you could decimate a generation, So, we got to stop supporting wild caught species.
Definitely great advice. Now I got a couple more questions, and then I want to go into like the social media part of my interview. Real quick, shout out to Elizabeth. She says spiders are so addictive. If you have a species you want, what's one more? Just get it. I have a list that I want to get. I'm just gonna get them and let the hubby find out later.
There you go.
I love it. So a couple more questions, and then I want to go to the social media part. Having so many spiders, yes, you experience just the positive stuff, but I'm curious about some of the stuff that can happen that might not be so positive. And what I mean by that is, have you ever experienced a tarantula kicking his hair at you? And if so, like, how did it feel?
Oh, at least once a week. I mean, my job now is filming and photographing spiders, so almost every time I pull out a New World tarantula, they're gonna kick hairs, or just messing around in their enclosure, feeding them, cleaning their water dish, rehousing them. Like, anytime you're interacting with a New World tarantula, there's a possibility they're gonna kick hairs, and especially if you're filming them, because they're photosensitive. They don't like bright lights. They're nocturnal, so they want to be out. They don't want to be out in the day, and especially if I'm filming macro, slow motion, that requires, high shutter speed, low aperture. It's or high aperture. You have to have a lot of light. So it's like sometimes it's almost more light than if they were just out in the sun. So they don't like that, and they'll see my shadow of the camera or me moving, and they'll think that I'm a bird that's going to eat them or something, and they'll kick hairs up. So it's like, I know
What?
which species or which genus, because each genus has different. There's like 7 different types of urticating hairs. So some of them don't bother me at all, or just barely, just make me itchy, like my skin's dry. But then there are other species like some brachypelmas, some losiodoras. They will make me itch for weeks, and it's
For
miserable. I hate
weeks.
it. Yeah, especially the Losiodora pariabana. She's got some nasty hairs, and she's big. I got a full-grown female. She kicks hairs at me. I back up and leave the room most times. Wait about 10 minutes, let the hairs settle before I go back in there, because if they get the worst part is they get in between your fingers, because your hands are right out there. That's very sensitive, and then you get little welts, and just trying to just constantly it's like getting fiberglass or poison ivy or something.
Ooh-wee.
No fun.
Now that's crazy, man. I couldn't imagine it. Now, you're such an amazing content creator. You have just an amazing collection of spiders. My question to you is: do you ever see yourself like getting in like the conservation side? And what I mean by that is like focusing on like a section of the world, saying, you know what, there's not a lot of spiders over there. Maybe I could breed whatever spiders and send them over there. Like, trying to like help the population of spiders that are being diminished.
Just one real quick. Snake Man said Theraphosa hairs. Woo, yeah, those are also really bad. I actually was showing somebody some tarantulas yesterday, and my Theraphosa kicked hairs, and I was like, "Wait, we're shutting this enclosure, and we're gonna go to the other side of the room because I don't want to deal with that. And I don't want you to deal with it. This being your first time interacting with spiders, I don't want to send you home with urticating hairs from a Goliath bird eater on your hands. That will not be fun for you." But yeah, for conservation, like, part of what I like, my goal as far as the channel is teaching people about spiders, like not just how to take care of them, but also where they come from, what benefit they have to the local ecosystem, but also, a lot of these spiders, their venom, their webbing, their hairs, it's all being studied by science for medicinal purposes. And so there's a lot of benefits to having spiders. So, I through my videos, I try to, get people to not be scared of them, and even if you don't want them in your house, don't kill the spider. Capture it, take it outside, let it live its life, do what it's supposed to do, fill its role in the universe. But I've also started making, like, one of my personal goals, something I really want to do is to make nature documentaries, like actually go into the jungle, go into the desert, go into the scrublands, film these tarantulas, where they live. That's expensive though. I don't have that kind of money. I'm broke.
Almost like Dave Kaufman.
So yeah, something like that I think would be awesome.
Ball
But I
pythons in
just
the
can't
wild,
afford to.
tarantulas in the wild.
Yeah. I can't afford to do that yet, but I have started making nature documentaries in my basement, or now here in the studio. This table right over here that I'm pointing at behind me, that's my nature documentary table. I've got different sets. I got a big TV as a backdrop. I can put a spider on there. I do a lot of studying as like, what does the train look like in what is the train of Argentina, like in the Chaco where the spider is located. And then I try my best to recreate that on like a stage and then light it and film the spider and essentially make it out like it is a nature documentary. So at some point I would like to be able to do that. The issue with the breeding and reintroducing, there's some like Poecilotheria species that are critically endangered over in Sri Lanka and India, and we have them in the hobby, and that's usually first people's first knee-jerk reaction is that we'll breed a whole bunch of them and we'll send them
Mhm.
out there. But the problem is, and I'm sure that's with a lot of other like reptiles and amphibians and stuff too, but especially with spiders, if it's in the hobby and you cannot genetically trace that back to its point of origin. You can't be like you can like a zoo that removed this tarantula from the wild, bred it at the zoo, and then it's bringing those babies back. Like they have a paper record where they can prove this. The tarantulas I buy off a website, I don't know who bred them. I don't know where they came from. With
Right.
most of the endangered species of spiders, the like the genus is Poecilotheria. The species could be like Metallica or Rufiliata, Vittata, so whatever. Sometimes they can crossbreed. Like they're different species, but they're almost close enough that they might be able to crossbreed. And then we have hobby form. So like through the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, people weren't really paying a whole lot of attention. So like a lot of the curly hair tarantulas we have in the hobby, some of the Mexican red knee tarantulas we have in the hobby, they're what they call hobby form because they've been crossbred with other closely related species. So they're not a true blooded species. So then scientists, zoologists, arachnologists, biologists, they're like, you can't put a spider back into the wild if it's not genetically pure, essentially.
I see.
If that makes sense. So yeah, essentially we're not able to do that.
So just more so you want to, conservation through education.
Yeah, and try
I,
to protect the environments that they're in,
I,
and and hopefully naturally they'll be able to repopulate.
I love that. I love that. Now, you're absolutely crushing it on social media, man. So I'm gonna call you a tarantula influencer. How does that make you feel?
Dirty.
Does it?
When I think of influencers, I'm thinking of like Paris Hilton, like that.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I love it. Now, essentially, I'm going to ask you something because I have a number. Right now I'm at 70,000 on YouTube,
Nice.
but I cheated. I think YouTubers now we don't have it as hard as the older YouTubers where they actually had to make long form content to get their numbers. I can make a short, and if it gets 9-10 million views, I'm going to get 30 or 40,000 subscribers. Matter of fact, I'll show you. There's a kid right now that I follow, and he has 122,000 subscribers. He's on the reptile side. Do you know how he got that? A reptile short. He shot a 60-second video and it got 140 million views, right?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about numbers for a reason. So right now I'm at 70,000, and essentially I have what's called a no trash number. What I mean by that is when I hit a certain number, I'm telling my wife I don't take out the trash anymore. I'm famous. And that number is 100K subscribers. You have surpassed that. 140,000 on YouTube, 60,000 on Instagram. Tell me, like, how does that feel? And what is like your no trash number? What is the number that is it like 200,000? And it's like, honey, I'm famous. I'm a tarantula influencer. You take out the trash.
I still take out the trash. Oh, that's a lie. My 14-year-old takes out the trash, but I tell him, hey, take out the trash. But I gotta tell you, I gotta take out the trash here. Yeah, that's I'll say this. It was 100,000. Like I was like, if I get to 100,000, then I'll feel like I made it and I'll be comfortable. But then I hit 100,000 and I'm like, it's got to be 500,000. Like that's the number. Like you just keep pushing that goal line further on down. Like yeah, it's one of those and it's an issue I've had my entire life. You never get enough. Like I'm just constantly, just I think this is what I need to be happy, and then I obtain that. and I'm not happy, and it's like, oh well, then I just need more, and that's caused me some problems in life. But when it comes to YouTube, that's kind of a good thing in some ways, as you can stretch you out. But yeah, I mean, my goal now, I guess, short term is to hit that 250. Honestly, my goal is to surpass Tarantula Cat in subscribers because I know that will eat her lunch. It'll drive her crazy. Like, she stresses about that. She's like, "One day you're gonna put out a video and it's gonna do well, and you're gonna surpass me, and then we can no longer be friends." Like, that day cannot come soon enough, Cat.
I love it. Shout out to Tarantula Cat. I'm gonna try and get her on next, man.
Yeah, I'll put in a good word for you, man.
Hey, I appreciate that. Shout out
Yeah.
to my Animal House, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that, brother. Y'all go follow my Animal House. Now, you having those numbers, and like I said, I would love to have 100,000 because I want that YouTube plaque. That's literally what I'm on YouTube for.
Yeah.
And I don't, nobody watches my long form content. I cheat and I get my subscribers off YouTube Shorts, which is totally fine. But my question to you is, you have something that I want. You have the YouTube plaque. So take me back to the day that the YouTube plaque arrived in the mail. How did it feel?
Well, I actually have 2 YouTube plaques. I'm special
Do you?
because yeah, I crossed 100,000. They sent me an email saying, "Hey, you've earned your YouTube plaque," and I filled out the form, and they sent it to me, and that was like in the midst of COVID, and things were just weird, and they did some weird update, and they sent me another email like a month later, like, "Hey, you've crossed 100,000. It's time for your YouTube plaque," and like it's sitting on my desk, and I was like, filled it out again, thinking they'll catch it. And then I got another one in the mail. And I was like, "Sweet." I probably shouldn't say that on YouTube. They may send me a bill now, like, "Hey, you owe us $500 for that second plaque." But it felt really good. It was for me. It was like the thing I could bring to my wife and be like, "Look, I got this," and give her the stats of like there's 41 million channels on YouTube, like active channels that have uploaded at least in so many videos in the past 12 months. Of that, like 41 million, only like less than 1% of them have over 100,000 subscribers. I was like, so I'm like in that tier, and that was like getting that validation was what kind of pushed me and got my wife on board with me doing this full time and leaving my job. That's what it meant to me. It meant freedom.
I
Not
love it.
so much financial freedom, but like freedom.
Right. I love it. I love it. And I think that's what I'm shooting for too. It's like, yeah, I get my viewers from the YouTube shorts, but they just start paying for YouTube shorts. So I get a little check now. So it's kind of nice. But now give me that time. Like, I don't know if you remember it, but take us back to that time. Like, do you remember like your first video that actually took off? Like, take us back to that day. Do you remember that you're like, oh my God, this video's really doing well?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably still my most viewed video. It didn't do well initially. Like I wouldn't I want to refresh my memory. Hold on one second. Let me pull up my stats here. Uh, and I get frustrated with short term or short form content, like the reels, the shorts, the TikToks. I feel like I spend a lot of time, especially on Instagram reels when they were paying you for that. I was spending a lot of time editing and uploading, at least one a day, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. And I think maybe on TikTok I got one video that maybe hit like half a million, but that was like the highest. I think on Instagram, maybe like 200, 300,000. On YouTube Shorts. Like, I think my highest performing one is actually I can tell you, I got it right here. Let's see, we'll go by views. No, that's not how it works. Most viewed. My most viewed short is 66,000. So it's like,
Nice.
I'm not making money off that. I'm not getting, not really converting into subscribers. But when it comes to like videos, the most viewed video, oh, it still is my number one. It was top 10 mistakes keeping tarantulas and spiders. And it pretty much just went over like the top 10 mistakes people make as far as like their care and husbandry. Or just things that they're doing that are hurting their tarantulas or at least not giving them their best life. The video itself isn't that good. Like, I usually try to keep my videos like around 12 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. This was like almost a 20-minute video. So I put it out and it was like, this video is too long. Not many people are going to watch it. I was still learning, like, because I don't have a background. I don't have a history. I was not educated in, video editing or using a camera or color grading footage or anything like that. So like I go and I watch that video now and it's just super, it's just way oversaturated, and like the focus is weird, the lighting's I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, this is a terrible video. How does it have hundreds of thousands of views? But I think a lot of that had to do with the title, the top 10 mistakes keeping tarantulas. I think a lot of people are like, ooh, somebody got bit by a tarantula or something terrible happened. So they're clicking on it. And then like the thumbnail was just kind of a cool picture I took of a spider. And I think even I don't know if it'll show up, but is that gonna show up?
So let's see. You can kind of see it a little bit.
Not
Go
really.
look at his channel. Go find the
Yeah,
video.
just go look at the top one. But the top 10 mistakes is in a font that kind of looks like a little blood is drizzling down. So I think it was just the title and thumbnail that got it a lot of clicks and got it a lot of views. And it's frustrating because I look at my top videos that are performed. It was top 10 mistakes keeping tarantulas, top 10 most defensive tarantulas, top 10 most venomous tarantulas. It's like anytime I do something that's kind of negative, it's like sometimes I walk that line.
Kind of sensational.
Yeah. It's like the title and thumbnail may sound a little sensational, but then you click on it and you're like the top 10 most dangerous tarantulas. The entire video, I'm just preaching tarantulas are not dangerous. But it's like, it's still people click on it because they think they're gonna see something crazy, or they just want to get mad. They're like, they know tarantulas aren't dangerous. They want to get mad at me. And then they watch the video and like, oh, actually he tricked me or something. So yeah, and that's frustrating for me actually, because I spent a lot of time working on these like nature documentary style videos, these care videos, educational stuff, and that never does very well.
That's
It's always
YouTube, man. YouTube.
yeah, it's frustrating. And then sometimes people get mad at me because I do that. And it's like, yeah, but I gotta put out a video like that every now and then. One, just to so I can pay the rent on this place and afford to keep doing what I'm doing, but also because that converts into subscribers and it gets people watching where
Right.
they may have never had any interest in tarantulas. They see that title and that thumbnail, they're intrigued, they click on it, they learn something, and they're like, I want to watch another one. And then that's when they start getting into the educational stuff. And before you know it, they're keeping tarantulas. So like it's not my favorite type of content to do, and I understand why some of the elitists or purists are like, "You're a terrible person for doing anything that's slightly sensationalized," but it's like, y my job is to get people to watch the video and to learn
Exactly.
something, and sometimes, you kinda gotta walk that line to just because that's the world we live in now. It's 60-second or 30-second attention spans, and yeah.
Like I said, I love your channel, man. I'm a big fan. Now, you're absolutely killing it, social media wise. Give us some advice. How do you think a person, if they wanted to, follow your footsteps, be a social media person full time, give some advice. What's the best advice?
All right, I got a bunch of advice. One is consistency, and make sure if you are going to do this, I can't talk about TikTok or Reels short form content because I have not succeeded very well there. But as far as like YouTube's concerned, you know, upload at least once a week. Like that seems to be the sweet spot for me. Some other people, if you're really, really good, maybe every other week or once a month, but it's gonna be really hard to get an audience initially. And so one of the things I wish I had done, I made a video, I uploaded it, I started promoting it, people watched it, and then I made another video and started that way. What I wish I would have done was made 5 or 6 videos and then just released one and then kept making videos, but all just had that bank of 4 or 5 videos sitting there. So if something came up, I got sick, my kid got sick, I had to go on a trip, something like that. I wasn't able to make content. I had a bank of videos ready to go. That would have taken a lot of stress off me. So definitely do that. Get a group of videos. And the second thing would be constantly learn. Like I started doing this. I was working full time. It was I I was at work 45 hours a week. I can't really say I was working the entire time, but my job was I was buying, my friend had it was like a coin shop, this kind of. We bought coins, gold, diamonds. Yeah, I mean, it's kinda like a pawn shop, but we didn't pawn anything and we didn't sell anything to the public, so it was more like people just brought stuff in and we bought it, and then we turned around and sold it to bullion distributors or diamond dealers in New York or coin collectors, or if we sold stuff on eBay, you know what I mean? So it was a lot of my job was listing stuff on eBay and, looking for auctions and stuff like that. So I was on the computer a lot. So while I was doing that, I would had a second screen that I would have a YouTube, I'd have YouTube open and I was watching videos on how to edit, how to do sound, how to use a camera. What's the difference between ISO and aperture? You know what I mean? Learning about frame rates, learning. So I was constantly learning. And then I was like, this week I wanted to work on color grading. So I'm gonna watch a bunch of videos on color grading, learn a bunch of things, and then make a video and try to implement that in there. And then just every video work on that, just color grading until I kind of got that honed in to where I was like, this is good enough. Let's what's the weakest aspect of my video now? Sound. Okay, I got to figure out how mics work. What's a good mic to get? Where do I place it? How do I do the sound design? What filters do I, you know what I mean? How do I
Right.
mix? So then I would study that and I would work on that and keep, essentially practice with the videos I was editing and putting out. And I mean, if you go back and you watch my first video and like watch them in chronological order, you'll see the progression. You'll see, oh,
You
he's
get better.
learning about how sound design. He's learning about editing. He's learning about color grading. He's learning about focus. He's learning about stabilization. So it was a progression. But I was like, my at least 1 hour a day, I wanted to devote just to like learning. So it is a lot of just watching YouTube videos. That was most of it. Like, I mean, there were some articles I read. I talked to some people, but I mean, you can get an entire education on YouTube, especially about making YouTube videos. And then
Right.
I was looking at marketing, SEO, backlinks, how to design a thumbnail, how best to title, how to use keywords. So it was a lot of that stuff. And so that would be my second suggestion is to put aside 30 minutes or an hour every day just to study the craft because I mean, it's not as simple as just holding up a camera. Even if it looks that simple, it's not as simple as just holding up
No.
a camera and filming. You got to know how to promote it. You got to know how to get it ranked in search. You got to know how to catch people's eyes. I mean, I mean, and I'm still learning, I unfortunately I don't have the time to do an hour a day, but at least a couple hours a week, I'm watching videos and trying to learn and keep up with the algorithm. There's always people that are like, the algorithm's changing. This is the kind of content you need to make, or these are the adjustments. So, it's a lot of stuff like that. So consistency, always learning. And the consistency is a big one because I was moving into this studio in December. So I really didn't put out any videos in December. January is typically like the lowest paid month for YouTube revenue. And I was getting everything, settling in and putting up painting and doing the sound absorbers and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't put out a whole lot of content in January either. So when I started regularly uploading at the end of January, up until like now, like my views were like cut in half because YouTube just wasn't
Wow.
recommending them to my subscribers. They weren't sending out notifications because as far as the algorithm was concerned, they haven't clicked on one of Richard's videos since November because I didn't put anything out since then. So when I put stuff out now, it was the algorithm's like, well, they're not interested in this content anymore. We're not going to notify them a new video's up. We're not going to suggest it. So I've like been digging myself out of a hole for 3 months and still not where I was in November, but at least I can see some progress. I'm getting back there.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a prime example. I should have had stuff banked. I should have had videos banked that even though I wasn't creating content, I was still posting every week because I'm paying the price for that now. So yeah, consistency, always learning, and then have for me, it's got to be something you're interested in. If you're not interested in one aspect of tarantula keeping, then don't make videos on that, even if
Right.
that's where the trend is. Like yeah, and I'm sure it goes even more with not arachnids, reptiles. That's what you're doing. If you don't like keeping hot snakes, then don't try to make videos about super venomous snakes just because that's where all the views are going this month.
Right.
People can tell subconsciously that this isn't something you're passionate about, and you're just trying to do this for the clout or for the revenue, and it turns them off. I don't know how they know that, but I can tell when somebody puts out a video. I'm like, you don't really care about this topic at all. Like, it's just what's trending. I don't want to watch this. And I know when I make a video about something, it's like they never do well because I something inside me just isn't genuine, and somehow people can see that in your eyes.
Right. I love it, man. Well, like I said, you're Mr. Richard, you're absolutely killing it. Like I said, on social media. I appreciate you for giving me an hour of your time. Like I said, I like to keep my podcast to an hour because that leaves room for a round 2 or round 3. I would love
Okay.
to get you back on for a round 2, man. But before we end, I want to give you a homework assignment.
All right.
Are you down for it?
Possibly.
I feel like you're the Don of tarantulas. the mob boss, the Don of Tarantulas. So I feel like you have a studio. Now, before the next person comes in your studio, I don't know if you're big on mob movies, but kiss the ring, like the Don would be like, before you say it, kneel to kiss the ring.
Yeah.
I would like to see a fat tarantula ring on your finger with diamonds, and then like the next time somebody comes to your studio, kiss the ring.
There's actually a jeweler here. A guy makes sterling silver jewelry. Before I started doing this full time, he came in the store where I was working and was offered to make me a tarantula ring and a sterling silver. I was like, oh, that'll be awesome. And then he never did. So
you need either a tarantula diamond ring or a big rope necklace with a diamond tarantula on it, man.
That would be all right.
But seriously, man, Mr. Richard, I'm a huge fan. Everybody, I mentioned y'all go subscribe to his YouTube. He's killing it. I hope to be up there one day with him. Man, thank you so much for giving me an hour of your time, man. I'm gonna go ahead and post this. I hope you have you got anything you want to say before you leave?
Yeah, Elizabeth in the chat asked if I met Dave. And yes, I did. It was weird. Dave's Little Beasties is who she's referring to. He's a really good tarantula content creator on YouTube, but he's in the UK. And it was frustrating because I got to the show about an hour before. I saw that he had a table, and like our tables were literally right next to each other. So it was like, there's me, there's Dave's Little Beasties, and he was so busy with customers buying spiders. I was so busy with shaking hands, taking selfies, signing autographs and stuff like that. The entire show, we didn't have a chance to speak to each other. So it was like the last 30 minutes, they let me leave the table and kind of walk around, get some footage of the show. I got to talk to him a little bit, like just a few moments. I don't even think I got anything on camera talking to him, but it was enough of a conversation that we were like, you're a cool guy. And he's like, yeah, you're a cool guy. I was like, well, then we need to do something together. So that communication was there that now, we can do a collab sometime in the future. So I'm really looking forward to working with him. But I just let you know that, Elizabeth. But thank you.
That's gonna be awesome
for having me on, man. I really appreciate you.
Man, I had a blast.
No, that's good. I know I talk way too much. I also have a podcast, but you can't see it. I got a banner. Where is it? There it is. The Exotic Pet Collective, right above my head.
There it is.
And I also shoot for 1 hour podcasts. But if you go to the Exotic Pet Collective on YouTube, you will see that they are all almost exclusively 2 to 3 hours long because I talk a whole lot once I get going. And then I'm usually talking to somebody that also talks a lot. And it's like, whoa, our 1 hour just turned to 2.5 hours. We need to shut this down.
That's what it's about, man. Podcasts are so fun just to chat with some of the people that you enjoy watching, you enjoy talking to, just seeing what they're up to. And I really had a blast talking to you, man. I can't wait till round 2, man.
Yeah. Moon Over Miami. I just got to give a shout out to that person. Every video I do, any live stream podcast, anytime that I'm live anywhere on YouTube, Moon Over Miami's there saying what's up. But they're also like anytime I watch anybody else's live stream, Moon Over Miami's there. They know what's up.
Shout out to Moon Over Miami, man. Great guy. He's always around, man. So anyways, I'm getting ready to end this, man. I hope you have an amazing day, man. Thank you again so much, sir.
Yeah, and I will put in a good word for Tarantula Cat. Maybe for round 2, you can have both of us on. So you can.
Dude, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
All right, Derek. Well, it's nice to meet you, man. Thanks for having me on. Everybody,
much love, brother.
Have a great day.
Man, how awesome was that? Richard from the Tarantula Collective, man. That's what it's about, man. Bridging the gap between keepers. I don't care if you keep snakes, giraffes. Hell, we just had Sharon's Wildlife. He had a giraffe. I don't care what kind of animal you keep. If you are an animal lover, I want to talk to you. That man is killing it on YouTube. I make sure you go subscribe to his YouTube, man. Shout out to all these sponsors, man. Without them, I couldn't be doing this, man. So, and please, before we end this, support USART. That is so important. They're fighting for us. And not just that, you see the lanyard, red line shipping. If you're shipping reptiles, red line shipping is the only way to do it. They're the best company out there. Man, mind blown, man. Elizabeth said she loved it. Hey, thank you, Elizabeth. Hope you subscribe, man. Subscribe to both of us. We all trying to get that YouTube content creator plaque. Until next time, man. This is Big Reptile Talk. Super, super fun episode. Until next time, we out of here.
Whoa.